We are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome again from random places around the world. I am back in the Bay Area. Um, right now, enjoying some dinner just because my Uber Eats order arrived 10 minutes ago. This is going to be the seventh iteration of the Tech Poutine. George, good to see you again, even though it's been a couple of hours since our last call.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Basically, um,
Yeah.
so in companionship with Ian eating, I have some uh, 12 year so cheat so I unfortunately Ian couldn't attend the Intel event in Oregon, but I was able to go, and I was able to get some 12-year aged sharp cheddar from Tillamook up there in Oregon. Delicious, delicious.
Is is Oregon known for cheese making?
Tillamook is actually a big cheesemaker. Yeah.
Okay. No, but I mean, is the
Um.
region. That's my
Um.
US knowledge.
Yeah. There are some pretty big cheese farms up there. Is it as famous as Wisconsin? No. But
Does
that's
does
more because
does anybody in Europe know that Wisconsin is famous for cheese? No. That's how famous it is for cheese.
okay, here are the states.
Yeah.
Uh,
Green Bay Packers, right? Cheeseheads.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So, in case you've never been here before, the way these usually work is that we start the stream, have a good, 10, 15 minutes, just let everybody arrive. Um, just relax. It's 5:30 p.m. Pacific on a Tuesday, and I flew in yesterday, and so I'm jet lagged and I'm hungry, and we're just gonna chill for a few. Today's been a very busy day, and I know it's not been that long since the last tech routine. Uh, the reason is because just today's had got a lot of news, and there's a lot of news to come later in the week. So we'll let people filter in for the next 5-10 minutes before we actually get this thing started. Hopefully,
so,
most of you know the topic of this show is going to be Intel. Um, that's not why I'm in town. It would be if they were running the event they said they were going to run. Innovation was technically scheduled for tomorrow. They decided to cancel that after their Q2 numbers. But I had a conflict then anyway. I'm in town for TSMC's packaging conference tomorrow. So I actually just went to the venue because I'm doing some content with TSMC. You may have seen some videos on the channel before speaking about their new foundry technology and packaging. Well, we're going to do another one. Um, I think this one's going to focus a bit more on people who are engaging with TSMC
mm,
on the IP and the deployment side. So it's yeah, I went around the show floor as they were building out and doing the keynote presentations today, so it should be good tomorrow. I'll see how much I can actually post during that event. TSMC are historically tight-lipped at these events. Um,
so
uh,
so while people are filtering in, and so that Ian has a
yeah,
chance to eat, I'll do a
yeah.
bit of a cheese review. Um,
Well, I was going to say, Crispy says free entry to the TSMC event. This event is free for all TSMC partners.
mm,
Let's put it that way. The Intel event wasn't.
yeah.
Uh,
But yeah. So uh, I'll base. So I've never done one of these, but so you get sort of off the note umami, tons of umami that then sort of delve into like a bright acidity, then sort of like a floral and mineral taste, like um like mineral water, and then technically. I get a lot of nutty notes, but apparently I'm weird and I'm the only one that does for this cheese. I get a ton of nutty notes at the end, along with a bit of like dried fruit. Uh,
Um,
very
in case
tasty.
anybody, in case anybody wondering is what George is eating,
Yes.
I've put a link to the cheese for the
Yes.
connoisseurs out there. You know, we have our good friend Jeff at Craft Computing. He does his beer reviews. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
cheese. Cheese is going to do cheese. I won't do
Hmm.
potato. Potatoes come in about 16 different forms. That's about it. I don't know. It's and I guess in other news, um, I was given this today. Um,
Yes.
why would I be given
Uh,
cake? Well, it's my birthday this week, and
Happy birthday,
I was
Ian.
going to be here for yeah, I was going to be here for Intel and for TSMC in the same week on my birthday. Um, so the fact that I'm here, people should be thanking my wife, not me. Uh, but yeah, so it's a fun experience having little sleep and lots of work on the birthday week. But mm.
Yeah.
Yes, I could have asked TSMC for a wafer. Could you imagine? It's
Hey, if they
well,
said yes, that'd
actually,
be great.
I should ask for a wafer of Lunar Lake dies.
Mm.
That would have been good. Um, I'm being coy today. It's not my birthday today. It's sometime this week. I'm being coy on purpose because I am soon to be 40.
Ian's
I've stopped
becoming an
being old.
old
I
man.
stopped. I'm not going grey yet. Um, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. The only hints of grey so far are in my eyebrows. But my hair is very millennial-esque. So it's. I think people have started to notice other influences between my age and George's age that's starting to go grey. It's. Eh, it's. I go to Asia and I still have that baby face. So again, apologies that I'm eating on camera. This is my
It's
only
the
proper
Tech
meal I've
Boutique
had today.
Mukbang edition.
Mm. No, it's not.
No, that would be when we're eating poutine together.
This is Panda Express. We don't have Panda Express in the UK. Well, no, we don't. We do have a Tim Hortons though. You know, the bad Tim Hortons, not the old good Tim Hortons. So, mm. George, have you got your Lunar Lake laptop to hand?
Right over here.
Show it before we talk to it. I mean, talk about it.
Do you want me to put it on Windows first?
No, just hold the laptop up just to prove you've got it. It's yeah. I think Intel sampled a few, Asus directly sampled a few. I know some people got Dell systems. Apparently, some of the analysts are getting Lenovo systems at some point. So I may get a ThinkPad. Uh, I mean, right now it's the laptop just here that we're running the stream off is
It's
Meteor Lake.
it's your Meteor Lake ZenBook S14.
Mm.
Basically, the predecessor to this.
Yeah.
This is the S14 with Lunar Lake.
How's the trackpad on that? Because over time, my trackpad has got worse. This is the problem with eating on camera.
Yeah.
Drinking's easy on camera. Eating's hard.
Trackpad is good, but I haven't really used it in Windows much. So
Shock. Charlie will be after your numbers
nah.
if you keep running Windows. Uh, uh, Davina asks, how can people screw up trackpads in 2024?
Very easily.
Usually they feel great day one. Usually they feel great day one. It's when you start to use them over time and the oil from your fingers gets embedded into whatever material they've got on the top. Um, or especially when you're like slow, you're feeling tired. Um, I should also point out that I'm the sort of person who disables tap to click because I absolutely hate it. Because I hover my finger over the trackpads too closely. I actually want physical left-right buttons on my trackpad. It's actually annoying me right now that I've actually killed one of the USB ports on this laptop, and I can't use this mouse alongside power and video input from my DSLR. So it's not enough ports, and I forgot to bring an extender. But yeah, it happens just in the same way that webcams. People screw up webcams. People screw up keyboards. The amount of keyboards that have the power button in just the right place that you hit it every time. Um, the HP for a while, I'm not sure if they still do it. The power button for the laptop is on the side, so that when you pull the laptop towards you on the desk, if you touch the button, it goes to sleep. Yeah. So. Um,
Yeah. Asus has committed a similar IMO sin.
oh
They put
yeah.
the power button right here. So when you're
Yeah.
typing along and you go to push the backspace button,
No, so I've got used to that, and the reason I've got used to that because it means that delete is at the very top right, and I use delete more than backspace. So
I you have this space over here for a button. It's nice and out of the way. Just use
uh,
that.
the one device you've never used is a Huawei laptop where they hide the webcam under the F6 key.
What?
So it's on a
Why?
spring It's on a spring mechanism. You press F6 and it pops up, and you get nose cam. Do you remember the Dell systems where the webcam was embedded at the bottom of the
Yes.
screen?
Yes.
It's like that, but worse. But
Uh,
it meant that their display could go right to the top of the edge of the panel, so of the lid.
well, it's been
Um,
about 15 minutes.
I'm going to finish up a couple of these questions because some of them are funny. Cycris Gaming asks, "Is this a mukbang stream now?" No, I'm just incredibly hungry, and this got delivered 10 minutes ago. Uh, uh,
And in solidarity, I'm having some cheese.
yes. Uh, Francois Roy asks, "As a Quebecer, I feel entitled to ask about the origins of the show's title." Well, I run a channel called TechTechPotato. George runs a site and channel called Chips and Cheese. So potato and cheese, and then if we have a guest, they're the gravy. On episode 4, we had John from Asianometry come in for a good half hour, 40 minutes. We did try and get Jeff from Craft Computing on this episode, given that right now we're all in the same time zone, but he has a family, whereas mine's back home, and well,
And
George
I
is
don't have a
young.
family. So, well, that's not true.
They'll come.
I have parents, but I have no
Yeah.
significant other to report to.
Uh, yeah. We don't have any cheese curds. Um, uh, yeah, it's And Mr. Vipitus asks, if Ian is hosting a live stream, how is their camera way worse? I am in the same hotel that I was at for Hot Chips, and for some reason in this room, the hotel Wi-Fi is half as strong, and it's 802.11n, so Wi-Fi 3. So I am currently connected to my smartphone, which is connected to the cellular network on my international plan. So I'm not in 1080, I'm in 720 technically, just to save a bit of bandwidth. It's
And I'm
but hopefully the audio is coming in. I have dropped off like 3 times in the last half hour, and there's obviously a delay because I can cancel a call shows up. And Davina, there is no wired Ethernet. There are 4 terminals for a dial-up connection in this room.
56K boys. Let's go.
Yeah, so it's if I cut, it shouldn't be long before I'm back. But hopefully George can take the reins.
I can hold this over, and I'm home,
Yeah.
so I have 500.
For those of you without YouTube Premium, ads are enabled in this stream, so they'll appear randomly. It's George is in the process of trying to be self-sufficient with a career, and so this is a little bit of help to go towards that. So hopefully you won't mind too much.
Ian is the host of the stream, Mr. Riptis.
Yeah. But if I get disconnected, the stream won't die because we're actually using a third-party service. If you're familiar with StreamYard, it works quite well. So it's what beer are you drinking? Because I'll get one.
I'm drinking North Coast Brewing's Prank Stir, which is a Belgian-style golden ale, brewed in Fort Bragg, California.
Isn't that where the military base is?
Yes, it is. Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg. Hence
Well,
the
one of them.
fort in its name. Yeah, yeah. I have a. It's not a laptop camera. It's this one. I have a Laughing Monk Brewing Mango Mashup Sour Ale.
Ooh,
so you remember the place? You remember the place where we ate at? Yeah. So they do takeaway beer, and it's actually cheaper than the Whole Foods, and probably nice. And it just so happens to be under 10 minutes walk away from where I'm staying. So I went and picked up a few because, hey, it's my birthday, so let's have a drink. And I think we are ready.
Yep.
So welcome everyone to a new episode of the Tech Poutine. This is number 7. I am your host, Potato.
And I am Cheese.
If we had a guest, they would be the Gravy. Unfortunately, no guest today. We did ask one of our friends who unfortunately had family stuff to do. And if you followed our last stream, which was only a few days ago, it's been very quick from 6 to 7. That's because today's been full of announcements. And I think this is technically the 3rd video in a row I've managed to put Pat Gelsinger in the thumbnail. It turns out there's a lot of Intel stuff going on. And today is the official launch of both one of the consumer products and one of the enterprise products. And I think the way we're going to start this is by talking about the consumer stuff, Lunar Lake. If you didn't join us for the pre-show, George, hold up your Lunar Lake system.
Well, it is currently in the process of rebooting into Windows, but...
That's fine, just hold it up. It's a system. They exist. It's the Asus ZenBook.
It's the Asus ZenBook S14. So it's a 14.
S14.
Yep.
So you've got Lunar Lake, you've got Ryzen AI 300, and you've got Snapdragon X Elite.
I do not have Snapdragon anymore. I returned that to Best Buy.
Okay, because you purchased that one, yeah.
Yep, that's the Strix laptop.
Hmm. Yeah,
Currently
that's
running
also a
some
ZenBook,
spec.
isn't it?
No, this is the ProArt PX13. So it's
Okay,
still an ASUS
it's on
product, but it's
ASUS.
not a ZenBook.
Yeah. If you've had a chance to look at any of the reviews today, a lot of them are on ASUS, just because it looks like Intel sampled a lot of them. Plus, also ASUS went and sampled a bunch. I was mentioning in the pre-show that I know that there have been some Dell systems in the wild. I should be
Mhm.
getting a Lenovo, but I wasn't able to get that before
So,
launch.
so just for clarity's sake, this was sampled by ASUS. Thank you, Anthony from ASUS.
Yes, so
Uh,
uh,
I was not sampled by Intel.
it Uh, on this, on the Tech Routine on the channel, on George's website, we've gone into detail about the Lunar Lake design and the architecture. So the brief cliff notes for those of you who haven't seen that content, fully suggest you go find that content. Is that this is a new what Intel calls swim lane. It's a new product category for them. Normally, if you look at most laptop manufacturers, most laptop chip manufacturers, they have like the education sort of Chromebook level models. Then you have the low power, the medium power, the high power, and then a desktop replacement, right? And they're usually all kind of built on the same platform, and that's what Intel did for things like Alder Lake and Ice Lake, and all the other platforms, and AMD does this as well. Lunar Lake is a product category designed to a new one designed to wedge in and make space for itself by having onboard integrated DRAM. Notice I said DRAM and not RAM. That's a pet peeve of mine. We can argue about it on Twitter. Uh, and the idea is that if you put the DRAM close to the chip, you may be able to get some benefits. People sometimes cite latency. Some people like to cite bandwidth, though that's not really true. The true one is power. You actually save 100 millivolts on the memory controller by having the memory integrated and so close. The downside is you can't upgrade it. An upside is it makes the PCB smaller so you can fit more battery into your device. You know, they're trade-offs, and Intel decided this was a time to go for it. On board, it's all built with TSMC N3B. So this is Intel's first mainstream x86 product built on TSMC. It's still packaged by Intel, I should point out. They have done other x86 cores at TSMC, some of the embedded stuff, some of the
So,
telco
if I
stuff.
remember correctly, the compute die of Lunar Lake is on N3B, as in Bravo.
Hmm.
The
Yep.
platform controller die is on N6, and
Hmm.
there's a base die with capacitors, if I remember correctly, that's on Intel 16, with all the
Yep.
packaging being done on Intel or
Yep.
by Intel.
Yeah.
Um,
So I actually criticized Intel because they kept saying it's made by TSMC, and I'm like, no, you should actually shout from the rooftops. It's still Intel packaging, right? It's not Foveros. It's
yeah.
just standard interposer packaging, right? So it's
There is EMIB. Um,
yeah.
yep.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's the same technology in the interposer. So it's this is meant to be by wedging itself in as a new high efficiency part into Intel's stack. They're hoping, I guess they're hoping to stretch it from about the 900 to the $1,600 laptop range, maybe up to 2 grand.
So so looking at
It
the price ranges I'm seeing from 950 to about 2 grand, with more being in the 14 to $1,800 range. So in
Yeah,
terms of price, this is actually comparable to Strix or some of the higher end SDXC
hmm,
laptops. They're all
yeah.
fighting in that price point.
Um, the reason it's not higher price is because of the core configuration and the performance. Um, you simply can't go into like the 2,500-3,000 range with what Intel's put into Lunar Lake. But because it uses advanced packaging, it's also a product that demands more attention than, say, a $600 device might be able to provide. We may see some devices as low as that near the end of the life cycle, as people decide, to cut down on things like display and battery and usability, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The reason now there are conflicting arguments as to why Intel used TSMC here, and the way it's been explained to me publicly is that um, at the time the engineers looked at what was going to be possible on TSMC versus what was going to be possible at Intel, and right at that point it was right at the beginning of the 5 nodes 4 years project, so they didn't really have much of a future look into where 18A was going to be, I believe. So that's why they decided to go TSMC for it. Which, if it works and it makes sense, it's good to know. It's so that's kind of what it is. Technical specifications: 4 P cores, 4 E cores. Is that Lion Cove and Skymont? Again, we've got
So,
articles and videos on these. You should go read
so
those for details.
this particular laptop, along with a lot of the laptops that the press were sampled, was the Intel Core Ultra
258V.
7 258V. Now, so this is 4 cores of Lion Cove, which boost up to 4.8 gigahertz, and four cores of Skymont, which boost up to 3.7 gigahertz.
It's
That has that's backed by a 8 Xe core iGPU,
mhm.
an NPU that can do up to 46 tops.
48. So your one does
No, but
47.
this SKU is
The
slightly
top of
cut
stack.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
It's frequency,
and
50 megahertz difference.
32 megabytes of DRAM,
32 gigabytes.
LPDDR5X 8533.
And
Yeah.
that's gigabytes, not megabytes.
Yeah, did I say megabytes?
Yeah, you
Oh, I
did.
meant megabytes.
So on board, I think if you add up all the caches, and by that I don't mean like the branch predictor, it comes out to about 50 to 52 megabytes based on their system level cache and their L3. And I tried adding it up one day when they announced it. But for Lunar Lake, the full stack, every chip is a 4+4 core. Um, and Intel has had a lot of criticism that that's not enough cores for the modern age. Um, we'll get into some of the benchmark results and some of what other people have reviewed it to be. I know George is still working on his testing. We can talk about the numbers that he's seeing before that goes public. But to be honest, PC World's headline says it kind of sums it up quite nicely. And I think they had 2 devices. They said great battery life, mediocre performance, surprisingly decent gaming. That's the short and curlies of it.
And,
So
and so to talk about battery life for a second, and I think that this is something that reviewers haven't quite caught up with, and that is introducing background electron apps to battery testing life methodology. So electron
what's an
apps like
electron?
Teams, Slack,
Oh,
Discord, stuff like communication apps, very popular communication apps that sit in the background, but unfortunately are quite battery heavy. Now, I have a very informal, very unscientific test, which is set the laptop screen to minimum. Doesn't matter what the actual nits is, just minimum. Have a Discord in the background, acting as my Electron app, and then YouTube on the front, just playing a 1080p 60 FPS video. And in my testing, again, very unscientific, Strix, which is behind me, and Lunar Lake roughly get about 8 hours.
Okay. What
STXT
did
gets about 7.
Really?
Yes. Now, granted, I think at that point in time, there was some bugs in Windows on ARM with Discord and Electron apps that may have been sorted, but I don't have the machine anymore, and that's just what I have, right, as far as my data is. And what I noticed was when Discord was running, so on Lunar Lake versus SDXE, not SDXE, versus Strix, what I was noticing is whenever the Discord had in order to actually use Discord and run the YouTube video, to keep Discord updated in the background with all the new messages, it would have to pull the SkyMont cores out of its sort of into a higher power state. Whereas with Strix, it basically stayed in a very low power state, not quite sleep, but one of the like Z10 or whatever sleep states. There's so many of them nowadays, but what I noticed was it was having to switch. It was having to go up and down a lot more than Strix was. Again, my very, very unscientific battery life testing. That's just my experience.
Yeah, I'll open up PC World's numbers. They run UL Pro
Ian, you're breaking up quite badly. But yeah, so talking about PC World, they were having trouble with getting Cinebench running for whatever reason. Yeah, so to continue, while Ian sorts out his internet, PC World was actually having issues getting Cinebench to run, which is interesting. Mostly, for the most part, my laptop has been on Linux because it's easier to SSH in, and so I've been doing a lot. We've been doing a lot of testing on Linux, not on Windows, but I know that there were some foibles with Cinebench on Lunar Lake in one of the Windows updates. There's a security patch, and the multi-core score, unsurprisingly, doesn't really hold a candle to Strix or to SDXE. That is not a surprise. What a shock. An 8-thread machine can't compete with a 12 or 24-thread machine. Yeah, that's truly a revelation of all time. But and this point was brought up. And for a laptop like this, how much performance do you actually need in terms of the CPU? And I think the answer is not necessarily CPU performance per se. It's responsiveness of the system. And that can come from multiple different things, including the CPU. But I think that's really more a factor for here is what's the responsiveness? Is it quick off its feet? Is it zero lag, right? Can you notice it? Does it get in your way? And for the most part, no, it doesn't get in the way. But there are times, and it's with heavier applications like Discord when it's trying to stay in its lower power states where it can get in the way. Ian is trying to come back. But please hold while he sorts out his internet. But the iGPU. So moving on to a nice positive. The iGPU, very nice. It does, in my testing, doesn't quite hit Strix, but it in terms of efficiency, it's pretty much there. But yeah, so Davina Dark Horse says tip, run Discord in your browser. Yes, but that's not the way that I run it. And this was a test that I set up for me, not for an article, not for this was purely my testing, right? Purely just for me, for my numbers. And Crispy says, so have you played with the BIOS to see if you can shift the director? There are very few BIOS options, very few. So have I looked at the BIOS? Yes. Are those options there? No.
Does it have a UEFI, or is it actual old school?
No, it has UEFI. It has proper UEFI.
Yuffie's a character in Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Not sure if you get that reference. Yeah, potato interwebs definitely here. It's depending on how the wind blows. What I was trying to say before I was disconnected was PC World's battery life. They've got Lunar and X Elite using UL Proteon at about 17 hours, whereas AMD was at 10.5. Again, that's just running Office apps, performing Office-like tasks. So they found that the graphics performance was quite good. And then, of course, you've also got things like XeSS to play with. Tech behind.
So you're breaking up again, Ian. So Ian's currently at a hotel, and for whatever reason,
but I'm using cellular.
Well, I was going to explain the whole thing. So Ian's in a hotel right now, and for whatever reason, the Wi-Fi in his room, even though he stayed at this hotel before, it's not great, to put it lightly. It's currently, I think it's Wi-Fi 3, which is 802.11n. So he's currently connected via his phone, which is an international data plan at 4G plus speed. So, yeah.
Yeah. And on my end, it looks like I'm super thin. So.
Yeah, you got squished. So.
I don't know. Yeah, it's been an issue. It's been a. It's just that sort of week. I think my tangent. My whole life is to deal with bad internet. My house. I've said this before, but my house in London right now has worse internet than I had in university dorms 20 years ago. In my university dorms, in my undergrad, I had 100. In London right now, I have 80/20 and cannot buy better. I did get an offer, though it was something like £5,000 a year for gigabit symmetric. I might have to wait until more pennies come in, and that would technically be a business line only as well. But yeah, Lunar Lake. So I guess is this a win for Intel?
I think it's. I don't know if I would necessarily call it a win. What I would call it is a necessary step that Intel needs to take.
So Intel technically also pulled in the launch for Lunar by about a quarter. or we expected it more sort of in 25 timeframe. Um, A is the fact they've pulled it in good, and B, if it had been on its original schedule, would it have been enough?
So I think that the pulling in for the consumer market is good. But I do think that it kind of shows Intel's bottom in the server market because, and we'll get to it, Xeon 6 is using Redwood Cove, which is found in Meteor Lake, which is now the last generation product. So you
Mm.
just launched a brand new server chip that has effectively your last generation CPU architecture in it. And you could argue that that's not a great look for Intel server. Um, but if it had launched next
But
quarter, say CES, I
mhm.
think it would still have a place in the market.
Do you think it takes market share away from AMD or Apple, or does it consume its own market share?
I think I personally don't think it's going to be taking market share from anyone. I think it's a step that, because I don't think that this is a high volume product. Like
Right.
AMD's rumored Strix Halo. Do I think that that's going to be taking market share? No, but I think that that is a necessary step for AMD.
Yeah.
We have LLVM patches saying that this thing exists. Assuming it does come out for consumer, um, I think it's a necessary step. Again, I sort of put both of these, even though they're completely different swim lanes, right? They're sort of the same
Hmm.
thought process in my head of low volume but important for future products.
Hmm.
Um,
Um, with the launch at IFA, I felt they did a good thing by um, one, not prioritizing AIPC so much. I think we're all sick to death about AIPC. And two,
AI,
when they
AI,
did address
AI.
AI, yeah, when they did address AI, it was more of a collaborative, it can run anywhere message rather than trying to ram the NPU down people's throats. It was like, hey,
Yeah.
this runs on the GPU, but that's okay too, because it's technically overall faster, even if it's not the most efficient. Um, I'm still waiting to get a device in to see how it operates. So I really want to put it up against Meteor Lake, um, in a like for like test, just because as time has gone on, my Meteor Lake device. I don't know if this happens to everyone as devices age, but you get it and it's amazing, and then slowly over time, as it feels like it's slower, your opinion on it sours a little. Some of that's like I say, the trackpad we were talking about earlier,
Mhm.
or just it feels like the battery doesn't last as long. So it's I mean I still
So
have the AMD Newton as well. It would be yeah, I'm interested to get one in to see how it works. They I believe for their certification program, the sort of what they used to call Project Athena,
it's Evo.
they're now mandating minimum. Yeah, uh, yeah, Intel Evo, not right. I keep getting Evo mixed up with vPro. vPro is something else. The newest generation of Evo also has mandatory minimums on webcams,
Mhm.
webcam
I haven't.
quality. So,
You know what? You know what? Let's do it live. Let's see how the webcam on this thing looks because I have not used it. Let's see.
and then so we should point it out just because people are mentioning it in the chat. Arrow Lake is just around the corner as well, which is Arrow Lake is Intel's more traditional end-to-end announcement. So we're expecting it to go from entry-level notebook all the way to desktop.
Yeah,
So
I so
and so there will be overlap between Arrow and Lunar, but in price. But for that, the change in price, you get a change in efficiency. Um,
yeah.
so we'll see.
Uh,
The that all three companies are now out with their hardware is a good thing. It means it's going to be a while before we get the updates. The people are asking about hyper-threading. The big side story here that I think is actually way more important than the product itself is the fact that Intel went ahead and designed the core and the cores using industry standard tools.
mhm.
So they use Cadence, they use Synopsys to build this chip for TSMC, and a good amount of machine learning was used as well. That means enabling things like hyperthreading, or SMT, or different cache configurations and stuff. It's a lot easier to almost change those late in the day with some of this stuff, or instead of spending another 2 years to spin up a product with hyperthreading, it's only a few months,
Mhm.
arguably. And
So
this means rather than hand tuning all those transistors and cell libraries, um, they can now leverage an ecosystem of hundreds of thousands of people trained on Synopsys and Cadence tools that could be future employees, to go do this stuff in the future. And that's going to be the backbone of what Intel 3 and Intel 18A are as well, because they're aimed for Foundry. It's they still have some custom tools internally that they're still using, though I believe that's more for test and validation, so they can be swapped out a lot easier.
mm,
But but I, I think that's a big that's a big win for Intel on that side. Or at least it's something they should have
yeah,
done a decade ago, 2 decades ago. People keep talking, oh, what about the chip Keller designed? What about the chip Keller and his team designed? No, the big thing Keller did was that change,
yeah.
forcing everybody to go on to a standardized tool chain.
Yeah.
So, uh, anything else to deal with Luna?
To
Uh,
deal with Lunar.
we're heavily waiting. We're heavily waiting for your tests and the
So
article. Um,
I can cover if you I can say a few numbers if you want me to.
sure, that'd be great.
Um, so Titanic Freak on the Chips and Cheese team, Ryan. He runs Minecraft server. He likes running Minecraft tests, and these are nice because they are fairly representative of Java workloads, right? Because he runs server Minecraft servers. So you have to deal with the whole JIT and all that fun stuff. And in testing, we didn't see a large performance leap with Lion Cove. It was more of an efficiency gain, um, which was needed, but was a little bit disappointing to see near as the same performance for Raptor Cove and Lion Cove. In a test that was pretty pretty solidly L2 bound, so it didn't really go out to memory very much. Um, and Skymont was again nice uptick over because Ryan doesn't have any Crestmont testing. Crestmont found in Meteor Lake. He does have some Raptor Lake CPUs at his disposal that he spun up and clock locked uh, the Gracemont cores to 3.7 to match uh, Lunar Lake,
So
and he got
it's an equal test, Raptor versus Lunar.
yes, and Skymont got about 20% more performance. And again, this is a test that mostly stays resident in L2. Um,
So are we getting to a point where new generation cores do so many esoteric things to extract edge case IPC that when a vendor does produce an IPC number, we expect it to be weighted towards the new things. That's what they're better at. That's why whenever we see AI tests, it's always on int 4 rather than int 8, one the previous one can do. Are we getting to a point where you have to run esoteric code to see some of these performance gains?
to some game, yeah. To some degree, excuse me. Yes. And it's very much a one number, even if it's a geo mean, doesn't really represent the
Yeah.
overall schema.
So it's
Um,
benchmarking.
yeah.
Yeah, we've had this argument with benchmarking till the end of time. Should we have one number? Should we have many? Should it be synthetic? Should it be real world? Um, does it? Ted Brady asks, "Are you all Team AMD, Intel or Team AMD?" I'm Team
I,
Potato.
I'm team cheese and team. I want technology to get faster and more efficient.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
right. If it's Intel,
Well,
AMD, ARM, Qualcomm, Nvidia, IBM, I don't really care.
yeah. It's fanboyism really gets on my nerves. Um, it's use what you got. It's the best
Mhm.
because that's where the value is. Um, yeah, there's no point. Mind you, I find rooting for sports teams equally as idiotic, but um, billions of people think otherwise. Uh, uh, which team am I on? Jose says whichever pays consulting fees. That's joy if everybody pays. Um, so yeah, he does also say no. It's Team ASML who wins, which is fair.
Mhm.
It's yeah. The amount of times I've had discussions with um, investors about the CUDA moat and the ASML moat is highly interesting. Or what does it mean if Intel has a 1 year lead in manufacturing technology? What does it mean for the market? Um, Fun stuff like that.
So
So, uh,
moving,
do, do,
I guess that
do,
sort of
do,
that
do you have
wraps
an
up anything
ETA
for
on your?
um currently writing. Clam is currently writing the article, so ETA soon. Um,
Okay,
um,
yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be before or after my interview because I did have an interview with Ronak
Oh
Singhal
yes,
at Intel about our next topic, Granite Rapids, or as I was saying in the video way too many times, Granite Ridge, which is the former code name for AMD's Ryzen 9000 consumer chips. Yeah,
yeah. Granite Ridge and Granite Rapids occurring at the same time. The thing is, nobody in those business units care because that's consumer and enterprise, and
yes,
consumer doesn't care what enterprise is doing, and vice versa. However, people like us have to speak about the granites.
yes.
Um,
And Davina Duckworth says, "Don't take it for granted." Uh,
Yes.
yeah. So at the end of I did a bit of a first thoughts video, and at the
Yeah.
end, there's a blooper reel of all the times I was screwing up saying Granite Ridge instead of Granite Rapids.
I think, Travis, if we had a granite lake, then the EPA would get involved.
Uh,
Does granite float? Let's find out. The mob says no. Um, so today's announcement on the Xeon side, on the enterprise side, is that we had the launch of Sierra Forest earlier this year. That was the Xeon 6 series, the 6700E. The
mhm,
way Intel is configuring it this generation is that everything is Xeon 6. You'll have the 6700 8-channel platform and the 6900 12-channel platform,
mhm.
and you can get that in either E flavor or P flavor, whether you want E cores or P cores. So 6700E and 6900E are Sierra Forest, and the Ps are Granite Rapids. And so today's launch was the official launch of the 6900P, which is the all P core 12 channel version. Is this the one that goes up to 8 sockets?
So okay,
No, no, no. This is still 2 socket limited. It's the
Granite,
6700P that goes up to 12, that goes up to eight
yes.
sockets.
So Granite Rapids has the Granite Rapids AP. That is what's launching today. That's a 97 the
69.
6900P series,
Yeah.
and that's up to 128 cores
Hmm.
and
P
two
cores.
sockets, 12 channels of memory. However, only one DIMM per channel um, for AP.
Just to be clear here, AP was the old name,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So
Granted,
so when George says AP, he means 6900P.
yes. Or if you want me to be uh, the UCC series of dies.
Yeah.
And
If you're familiar with that terminology, that's just how big the dies are as well. Um, the Yeah, so memory support, it's DDR5 all the way up to 8800.
so it's DDR5 6400 or MRDIMM 8800.
Which, if you had a chance to see Wendell's content over on Level 1 Techs, this is a substantial change, substantial increase in memory bandwidth per core
Mm-hmm.
for this generation. So if you're running a workload that's memory bound rather than compute bound, which is a lot of scientific workloads, then low core count 6900p with this new memory running at peak bandwidth really tilts the scale,
Mm-hmm.
better, which is interesting. So uh, this is essentially the mainline update. So back when we've had Xeon 1, Xeon 2, or even back with the Xeon E5, right, all the way through, to uh, Uh, oh,
So
why am I
it
blanking? From Xeon first gen, Xeon second gen, the main line has always been, the most performance cores in the chip, and this is essentially what is next.
yeah.
When people were putting in the 8280s with 28 cores into
Mhm.
everything, this is essentially the top line upgrade for that. And the SKU stack is simple.
Yes, it's only 5 SKUs. Amazing. However, um, crispy silicon in chat says and MRDIMM support. Okay, now this tripped me up, but if you go to the Serve the Home article, page 2,
I'm actually going
Intel
to bring that up now.
Intel bad. bad. The MR DIMMs in Granite Rapids is not the JDEC MR DIMMs that have been proposed by AMD and the JDEC spec. These are MCR DIMMs that have been relabeled.
So this is literally the 5 performance SKUs for 6900P.
Yeah.
So 72 cores up to 128 cores, 3.2 gigahertz all core, 3.9 gigahertz max turbo, half a gigabyte of L3 cache. Wait, 504 doesn't divide evenly into 128.
No, but it
Are they harvesting some of the dies?
So it's yeah. There's a 8 meg. This isn't quite 4 megs per core. This is like 3.975.
3 points. Okay, yeah. So traditional, not proper factor of
Yeah.
binary numbers. TDP all the way up to 500 watts. So chances are these will all be liquid cooled, except this one. That may be air cooled.
So on that comment, they can all be air cooled, but they do suspect that some deployments will water cool them. But they support both.
Yeah, everything supports both, but
that was the official statement from Intel themselves.
Yeah.
And what's nice is everything after the TDP is all the same, which is a wonderful change for Intel. Because it used to be that you would have different accelerator devices or different link speeds or even different memory speeds. This is all just the same, at least for these SKUs. Yeah, so 120 doesn't divide into 3 dies either. No. So it's not perfectly square, so to speak. You have 43, 43, 42 in your, 2 dies of 43 and then cores in 1 die of 42 cores.
And they don't tell you which die doesn't have the extra cores.
Well, we asked, and you can see it in Ellis Top-Up. But yeah.
And serve the home have one.
Mm-hmm.
So top bin 128 cores, 256 threads.
Technically, that's not 1 gigabyte of cache, but okay, Patrick.
Yeah. Oh, this is the good images that he's got. He's got the videos coming. I think. I'm not sure how long the guys had for this. So technically, there was a tech day in Oregon. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that was while I was on holiday, so I didn't get to go. You went, George, though.
Yes, it was great to see all the members of press, as always. And questions.
Patrick Kennedy from Serve the Home, Wendell from Level 1 Techs, Michael Larabelle from Phoronix, and some select
Jeff
others.
from Craft Computing.
Jeff got to go. That's good.
Yep.
Because
he was the cameraman for the interviews.
Okay, that's good. Was Jordan from Storage Review there?
No, Jordan was not there. He could not make it.
Okay.
Tobias Mann from the Register was there, and again, others.
So news. My old colleague Gavin Bonshaw is going to do some work for the Register.
Fun.
I found that out today. So what was anybody from LTT there?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. So Xeon 6 release schedule. So if people aren't too clear, this is the bottom left one. So this is 6900p. So on the left is the P's, on the right is the E's, on the top is the 6700, on the bottom is the 6900. Nice and simple. So Xeon 6, 6900P, 96 lanes of PCI 5, CXL2. They were showing off some of the CXL2 support, weren't they, at the demos?
So there weren't really any demos.
Oh, they just. I thought they had some partners come in and talk about using
Yeah,
CXL.
so they had partners come in, but there were really no demos.
Huh. Okay.
It was
Um,
basically think of a hot chips presentation.
right.
Yeah,
So
but just
yeah.
multiple of those, and then with partners coming up.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
and Jose in chat says, hopefully Cheese had some McMinimans. I completely ruined that. Or Burgerville in Hillsboro. Intel took us to McMinimans, and they had an absolutely delicious blackberry cider that was great.
ooh,
Yeah,
I
you
will have
would
to
you would
go.
have really liked it. Um, it was
Sorry,
delicious.
I was in Armenia, being
Yes.
ill.
But yeah.
So 6900P technically comes in multiple forms. So it will go down to 16 cores. That's just not being launched today. These so on the left you have the UCC, so ultra core count, with the maximum 128 cores. Then you have the XCC, the HCC, and then the LCC is just a smaller variant of the tile, up to 16 cores. So that'll be more cost optimized.
So to talk a
But
little bit
still,
more about this,
I was going to say it still has
because
12 memory channels.
no,
Oh,
no. So for Intel, the memory channels are on the compute die themselves. So the three compute
okay,
dies have 12
12.
memory channels with 4 memory channels per compute die. The SP has again same compute die, but there's only 2 of them, so you only have up to 8 channels. The
You mean
HEC, XCC, excuse me, and HEC only has 1 compute die, which limits you to only 4 channels of memory. And then
right? Okay.
LCC, that was never made clear how many channels there are on that
hmm
die.
I suspect at least 4.
It could be 4. It could potentially be down to 2, maybe 3, or maybe they went the other way. Maybe went 6
So
or
I
8.
will say, I want to come back up here. So you see these CXL2 lanes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can use them in memory expander mode, and that gives
Yes,
you the equivalent of 4 channels.
that's
If you,
flat mode
if
for
you,
all you guys who
yeah,
remember.
if you use all the CXL lanes for memory that you can, because
Mhm.
not all of them can do both, but
So
all the ones I
64
think it's
can do CXL.
yeah. Yeah, so if you're prepared to use 64 of your lanes, you can add another 4 channels. So this chip can become a 16 channel chip equivalent. There's some additional things like variable latency that you have to worry about
Yeah.
as well. But it's still quicker to use CXL than it is to use a UPI link, I think.
No,
No? I thought
I
they'd
don't
done
believe
some
so. No.
stuff that okay, never mind. So yeah, Patrick's got a good thing here. This is a clustering mode. So one of the issues that we've had as we get larger chips is that sometimes cores are very far away from the memory that it needs to access. This got worse as we moved to chiplets, to tiles, because it now meant that there was additional tile-to-tile latencies to take care of. As a result, there's been a push towards what we call subnuma clustering, or SNC,
Mm-hmm.
whereby if with the right mode, you can make sure that cores get data put into uh, the memory channels closest to that core where it needs it. Um, so for the benefit of this is better latency access in that memory. However, overall, your bandwidth has the potential to decrease if that memory isn't local, because it checks local first, then goes out. Not normally, what it'll do is try and check everything, or at least
So
snoop.
when you enable SNC3, you essentially get the three guys act as three separate CPUs.
So, so in the OS, it actually looks like three CPUs.
Yes. Um,
Just if that wasn't confusing enough.
it acts essentially as three NUMA nodes. Um,
Yeah.
but in even with SNC3 mode, you can see that there was a latency regression with Xeon 6.
Uh,
And if you're in hex mode, which is what was known as SNC1 mode,
mhm.
there's a big latency penalty for your LLC, for your last level cache hit. Um,
So going over the compute die is about a 7 nanosecond hit,
yes, but
or at least,
it's still a decent,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So, for people wondering if this slide looks crap because of my connection, no, it's actually crap. For some reason, it's stupidly low. Actually, I know what it is. Because I'm connected to cellular, it's downloading the cellular version.
ah,
So that could be why. And yeah, we've got the deleted versions. The architecture for the I/O die. So yeah, we didn't speak about this, but the compute die is built on Intel 3.
mhm.
So it's an EUV based product, and the I/O die is Intel 7. And the I/O die has all the accelerators and the PCIe and the UPI and the CXL.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's basically all the I/O except for memory, and the memory is left on the compute die.
this is a core-to-core latency diagram.
Unfortunately, that diagram is almost completely unreadable, even from a desktop.
Yeah, no, I know. Just look at the
Um,
pretty colors.
basically, uh,
The only person who doesn't use my original color scheme that everybody seems to use now is Patrick. Uh, his top bar is blue. Uh, yeah. So, but Patrick's got a multi-page review here. Uh, he he likes the fast memory.
yeah.
And he's got plenty of videos for that. And
And
the
you'll see it. I think if you scroll down a little bit, there it is. Up
nice,
a tiny bit.
tasty.
Yep, up. There it is. To quote,
Okay.
of course, we should take a second and just note that there's a big caveat here, and that it's somewhat strange.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to get it bigger.
JDEC will have an MRDIMM spec, and that the MRDIMMs for Xeon 6 with P cores is not actually that spec. Instead, it's the MCR DIMM spec. When we use MRDIMMs with Xeon 6, what we really mean is MCR DIMM. The concepts are largely similar, but it's unlikely when AMD supports MRDIMMs that you'll be able to take a Xeon 6 MRDIMM, really an MCR DIMM, and use it in an AMD system.
This is
This
like
this is infuriating.
this is like calling a HD DVD a Blu-ray, even though it's a HD DVD, and then that gets discontinued. And moving
Mhm.
forward, you have systems that only support Blu-rays, but not the Blu-rays that are actually HD DVDs.
Yes, this
What?
is. They should have just kept it as MCR DIMMs. That they
Yes.
should have just kept that naming scheme. Because I made that mistake in my video because I
Mhm.
asked them, are they going to be JDEC compliant, and they're like, oh well, like they were kind of wishing me to say. I was like, okay, maybe because the spec isn't out yet, they don't quite know all the pure details,
Yeah.
but they'll be 99% the way there, and maybe they can chicken bit some stuff. Um,
So does Xeon 6 support the MRDIMM JDEC spec?
no, because that's the
So it's
AMD spec. Well, that's the spec that AMD and JDEC are working together. These are it's infuriating. It's utterly infuriating.
Yeah. Okay. Um, we also noted that during some of our standards meetings, Mr. Dim was pronounced Mr. Dim. Huh. Okay. So Intel uses Mr. Dim, AMD uses Mr. Dim. New
This is
standard.
not confusing at all.
The Micron MCR Dim, Mr. Dim. Or is that?
Yeah, no,
No,
no.
this is MR Dim. Oh, this is um yeah. If this happened in the consumer space, there'd be a riot.
Yeah. To be fair, I kind of want to riot about this.
Yeah, it's a topic for a video or a short. If people hadn't realised, we're actually going to start doing shorts from the Tech Routine, so a more consumable format for shorter attention spans. The video on this channel that was posted earlier today was our talk about Qualcomm buying Intel. That given the amount of viewership that video has gotten since we posted it a few hours ago, it's very well worth us doing shorter clips for the audience who doesn't have the 2 to 3 hours that we normally spend on these things. Um, Sorry, small aside, but
Yeah.
um, Intel has a marketing regime for its P core versus E core, what workloads work for each type. Basically, P core works for everything, and E core is optimized for cloudy stuff. Kind of feels like Genoa and Bergamo. Genoa
Yeah.
does everything, but Bergamo does some things better.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, there are some architectural differences, we should say. Um, the last
Both
launch,
between P
eCore
and E
didn't have.
course, there's significant architectural
Yeah,
differences. Yeah.
yeah. So unlike AMD, where the Genoa and Bergamo were essentially the same architecture, just with different L3 cache, um, you must remember that Intel P and E cores are different. They will run different
Yep.
workloads. And Patrick here is talking about, the P-Core Redwood Cove in 6900P is the Meteor Lake P-Core.
Yes.
So this is the Meteor Lake generation, essentially, of enterprise chips. Now,
Yeah.
we'd always postulated ages ago that the consumer line was always iterating slightly faster than the enterprise line. So at some point, the enterprise line is going to be a full generation behind. Does that mean that the enterprise generation will skip, a core architecture generation,
Maybe.
to be on the similar cadence? Then 10 nanometer happened, so it didn't matter.
Mm.
But we may get to that sort of similar situation again. Uh, One thing is that because these are big chips um, built on Intel 3 using new tools, the ramp, the design cycle for these parts would have been a lot longer than traditional. Uh, though at least it didn't take 12 spins or 7 spins this time. Uh, the one thing that Patrick does bring up that's important for people who do know this market is that in the for Xeon fourth generation there was a product called Xeon Max, CPU Max, with HBM on board, the one that we all wanted for workstations, right? Because who doesn't want a HBM on your chip? There is currently no plans to do that, and the reason is that the MR DIMMs, which are technically MCR DIMMs, provide enough bandwidth for Xeon CPUs to be competitive. That's what they're saying. Add in some CXL memory. So I really want I want HBM on CPUs. The official reason that they've said now that it's not in workstations was because that you actually have power issues. idle power is too high for for the energy saving specifications for consumers. So you can only sell them in a server in a B2B context, which is a shame. Have I lost you?
So
I've been on a bit ranty.
the the big socket is LGA 7529. Yeah, and the small
There's
socket
an
is LGA 4710.
and these things have an exact torque requirement for their coolers, so you have to buy a $300 screwdriver or torque wrench to put them on, which is frustrating. And yeah, it makes me wonder at what point we'll actually get chips with a hole in the middle because they require additional force to put down.
And we got some nice images of Clearwater Forest, which is going to be the successor to Sierra Forest. They were showing that as it's here and it's real.
Was this the sorry, I'm just scrolling through memory modes and stuff. So this is what a memory extender looks like from the Astera
Yes.
Labs people. They're actually just around the corner from me right now,
Mm.
which is interesting. I should go and ask if I can have one. Marvell has their equivalent, but they handle more memory. You're still limited by the bandwidth you can put through these things, but you can increase capacity. So imagine you've got an ASIC here that does 2 channel, but it supports 6 DIMMs per channel. Yeah, that sort of thing. Where was this? I wonder if Patrick's got the Sierra Forest here. Sorry, not the Sierra Forest, Clearwater Forest. We covered that in a
If
previous.
if you go back,
Oh, was it
maybe
in
it's
that?
still. It was
Yeah,
in that family picture. Maybe he has a better picture on 6. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
there it is.
Oh, this one.
Yep, that's
Um,
that's Clearwater.
can you actually see my mouse?
Yes,
Okay, so sometimes with this system, these platforms you can't. Yeah, that. Let's see if I actually get a
it's
high resolution version of that. Yeah, probably
you know
be.
what?
That's been taken off, and that's.
Give me
Oh,
a quick
it's a
second.
package on. It's a package on package situation as well. Huh.
Yes.
Or as I like to confuse people by calling it balls on balls.
uh,
Highly appropriate. So yeah. Power 666 says that Deck Alphas had bolts in the middle of their packages to help screw down the heatsink. I'm speaking more about just the pins in the socket having enough force for contact. So yeah, it's this gold color is because of the indium tin solder that they use, or at least that's the methodology that's the messaging. It also it means it's a bit more difficult to try
Ian,
and see.
check your DMs.
I have to load up Discord. I disabled it because I actually found out what was eating my bandwidth
Was it Discord?
because I had the YouTube Studio on a different tab and I'd forgot to pause the stream tab.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny. Yeah, that's
Uh,
a clearer picture
okay.
of Clearwater
Yeah.
Forest.
Give me a few seconds for
Yep.
this to load up. And uh, oh, I got a picture of you as well.
Yes, so that's the webcam. That was the
Oh,
webcam on the Lunar Lake system.
okay. It's
It's a right for webcam, but it's not anything to write home about. Um,
yeah. Let's see if I can pull these up. Uh,
I will say it's better than my Augby
which
webcam, which is
Orki makes webcams.
Yes, it's not a particularly good webcam. It's very washed out.
Yeah, so that's the webcam. It's not too bad. Yeah,
No,
there is also compression on the things. Um,
uh,
okay, and let me.
there it is. So
Yeah,
you can't actually
so
see the
somebody's not
3D
very good at
bonding.
deelidding. No.
No, but so you can't see the 3D stacking. But there's 4 compute dies on each of the 3 base tiles. Um,
Yeah.
basically, yeah. Um,
So yeah, this is what I said before in my rant in a previous tech routine. Having compute chips on an interposer, then have multiple interposers with an I/O die, or in this case two.
yeah.
Because then
Well,
you
this isn't
then
an interposer. This is an actual base tile. I believe this has the LLC. So this is the LLC and the memory channels
oh, active base tile. Okay.
on the base tile.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
and then there's the EMIB and Fovero stuff beneath that to
Yeah.
link all together.
It's
Um,
do we know if Clearwater Forest is all Skymont? We would assume so.
I think the okay. So this is what the if I remember correctly, this is what the rumor mill says. So it's the rumor mill. Take all of it with a grain of salt. So big with grains of salt so big you could uh, kill a person with
Ah,
it. Um,
go play League of Legends to experience how salty this can be.
yes, but I believe Clearwater Forest is Darkmont, which is a slight architectural change on Skymont. Again, rumor
Okay.
mill being
Kind of
rumor
like,
mill, so
oh, is this like Goldmont and Goldmont Plus were slightly different?
I'm thinking it's more like Gracemont to Crestmont.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's
is there any good overview of what you are just part of what product across mobile, desktop, and server? Unfortunately, you just have to sort of go to each of the individual reviews and make a chart yourself.
there's probably a good chart there. Um,
Yeah,
Intel went a bit weird with 8th gen because of things like Whiskey Lake and Amber Lake. And then between Cannon Lake and Ice Lake, that got screwy because they were both 10th gen. Um, the problem is when you get a generation that has multiple architectures inside it, depending on the SKU. And then this also, it's at times it can be worse than when it was just simply GPU freshes at the low end type thing. So, excuse me, and then backport. Oh, do you remember that slide where Intel was talking about backporting architectures the whole time?
yeah, that
They got
was
really
that.
annoyed when I posted that. Yeah, I
Um,
posted that, and they got quite annoyed at the time. Yeah, that whole philosophy kind of went out the window, didn't it?
yeah.
Um, it kind of made sense at the
Now,
time.
now
So
it's now it's optionalities with TSMC.
there's going to be some stuff at the TSMC conference tomorrow. You
Yep.
should all stay tuned on social medias uh,
But
to
to
find out
wrap
about that.
up, Xeon 6900P series,
Mm.
I think it is the right path for Intel to go. I think um, looking at the performance, I think it's good, but things do not appear in a vacuum. Um, and we have to see what AMD's response is on the 10th. Um,
Yeah, if you weren't aware, for people who weren't in the last tech routine, AMD has an event on October 10th called Advancing AI, which should be exciting. Where we're expecting the next sort of series of updates to come.
yeah.
Um, I'm trying to bring up this slide deck. Uh, yes, I think. Um, can we have a window? Let's. Can you all see that? Let's. Yeah. Okay.
This is Gaudi 3.
Yeah. So, well, let's. This is annoying when things like this scale to exactly how it's done. Yeah, so one of the other things that Intel launched today, gave more detail on, was Gaudi 3, which is the AI accelerator. It's still not it's still not technically launched, or was today technically the
So,
launch?
so, so they
It's not
said that
actually
they're
shipping
shipping
until
systems.
Q4.
No, so they said, so at the event they said that we are shipping systems today,
Okay,
but general availability
we're
is in Q4.
okay. Yeah, so it's going to select partners now. So this is the AI chip. This is the AI chip. The one that came out of the acquisition of Habana. This was
Hmm.
all designed pre-acquisition. The only thing that happened after acquisition was essentially tape out and verification. So it was made at TSMC. It is using CoWoS. Uh, we've both got articles and stuff about it, but this is their a traditional slide deck going about how they see Gaudi 3 in the space. The biggest initial customer is IBM, which surprised me a little because IBM has a supercomputer with lots of NVIDIA chips in it for training. They have systems with their own inference chips in it. Their IBM Spire AI accelerator. So for them to have Gaudi 3 in the cloud, I'm wondering if it's just simply optionality. Some customers want Intel
Well,
from IBM.
Gaudi 3 is more training, is more for training, whereas I think Spire is more for inference.
No, I know, but I'm also seeing Gaudi 3 being used for inference as well. So,
You can use Gaudi 3 for inference, but I suspect that IBM may be using it more for training.
mm, the first
That's
slide
just
here,
my
yeah, the first slide here is all about Gaudi for inference.
inference.
So,
Yeah, yeah, maybe I'm wrong,
yeah,
but yeah.
I don't know. It's traditional product line is going to be an OAM card. That's the Open Compute um, Accelerator
Open
module.
compute open acceleration open accelerator module from OCP.
Yeah. You have a baseboard, so that's just your 8-way, and then
Hmm.
also a PCIe card that just says Gaudi on top rather than say Gaudi 3, which I think is a bit of a missed opportunity. We've been through these specs before because Intel's already given all the Gaudi 3 detail.
Yeah.
HBM2E rather than 3 because actually the internal bandwidth is only, with HBM2E it's better balanced, but also HBM2E is more readily available. Um, lots of networking because people are realizing that good AI chips have to have lots of networking these days. Um, the way they're doing their configuration, uh, you know, for top boards and scale out and scale
Mhm.
up, talking about all the memory. And yeah, their big argument is we can offer slightly better performance, in this case 9% for versus H100 at almost 2x performance per dollar. So their argument is that if you want to run us in the cloud, we offer a better cost benefit analysis, a better TCO this is Llama 3 8 billion. I'll be honest, it frustrates me when somebody takes a 128 gig card and runs 8 billion parameter models on it. You should be running 70 minimum. Um, that being said, I have done a video where we're speaking more about how AI workflows are going from model to model to model to model to user.
Mhm.
What we're currently calling agent. So there is some people pushing against that naming. And the whole point is, if you can keep all those models, if you're going to 8 billion parameter models, you're now using 48 gig of memory. Um, and with a 128 gig card, you can run at least 2 sets of that concurrently. So really what you're running is multiple AI models that total a 48 billion parameter, which is fine. Or we're doing mixture of agents where the average, the average parameter size for a request is like around 30 or something for like a 7x7 or a 7x8. These numbers for throughput are based on an input sequence of 128 tokens. So that's what, about 100 words. So when you go to your LLM and you put in like a 100-word request,
Mhm.
and then you get 2048 tokens. Hopefully it's coming through on stream, on the quality.
It is readable, though it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
it's
can read.
it says 2048 tokens on the output. So again, that's about, I don't know, 1600 words. Because it's about 1.2 tokens per word, on average. And yeah, I think 128. Some people might argue 128 1024 is more like a standard human interaction. I've seen people argue that it's actually more like 20 100, 20 input, 100 output. And when we move to agentic workflows, this sort of daisy chain, there's still no clear indication whether stuff will be short messages or long messages. One of the tricks right now with these models is ask them to show they're working. If they show you the working, they're more likely to get a good answer. Thing is, in order to show the working, you have to have a very extended output rather than just the answer.
Mhm.
Tell it, assume that I'm going to show assume that I'm going to ask you to show your working, but don't actually show it. I wonder if that has the same effect.
Mm.
I don't know. Yeah, and here we go. Price performance advantage on 70 billion, 1.2x throughput for 2x performance. Then we get into a technical deep dive. I think we know most of this already. I'm glad that they were
So,
doing,
so most of
but
these,
you were there.
yeah. Um, I had a voice interview with just like a standard regular um,
Chat.
Johnny Knoxville interview with Roman Kaplan, who gave the deep dive. And what was funny was he asked me the question um, about so he basically brought up our Teleb 2 article where we talk about um,
Mm.
the virtual L3 behavior in Telem. And if you
Mm-hmm.
watched Hot Chips and you went and you saw the Hot Chip slide, Gaudi 3 is broken up into essentially 4 cores, each with 24 megs of SRAM. It says 48
Yeah.
here. That's per die. Within a die, you split into two, essentially. Um, but each of those so if you have a line evicted from one of the 24 meg caches, it can go into one of the other 24 meg caches.
So it has
So
a
much like,
virtual.
yeah, it's
If it
sort of
has a
acts like
virtual.
virtual L3, kind of like IBM's Talon. Um,
Um, the thing is, if they can do that, they should list it as a spec.
they do, if you scroll down a bit,
Where it says on die SRAM,
yes.
so it should say per core SRAM,
And then
24, and then
total.
it should say per last level SRAM brackets virtual. 96.
So if you scroll
Well,
down a bit,
the thing is, it says SRAM here, then they say L2 cache here. So they're being redundant a little bit.
yeah,
Uh,
if you scroll down a bit,
I I didn't look at these slides.
yeah, here
Actually,
it is.
I think they emailed me. I think they emailed me because they wanted to go through them with me, but because I just got on vacation, I wasn't checking emails. The event had already gone before I answered. William, if you're watching, sorry. It's you should have got my out of office. So
So it's sort of hidden in the cache directives. Um,
right,
that
yeah.
L3 is that virtual L3, and the L2s, each of the L2s is each of those 24 meg
Mhm.
SRAM blocks per core.
Mhm.
Um,
It's what do they mean by near memory compute? Do they have the ability to do operations as you shove data out into memory? That's what
I
that sounds like. We need
I
to get you
think
up to
that's
speed on
I
AI architectures, George.
well no. So I'm trying to remember what exactly that meant, and I think that just means that they have SRAM tied with their like they have
Okay.
SRAM near the which yeah that's true, but that also encompasses so many different things that I could be
Yeah.
misremembering. It might be more complicated than that, but I that's
To be
what.
honest, you went to the event purely for the Xeon stuff, and you had a head full of Xeon.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The Gaudi 3 stuff, I'm less in the AI space, so
Well, also I think this may have been your first contact point regarding Gaudi with Intel. So,
yes.
um, yeah, yeah, it's 8-way system.
Also, I saw
Uh,
Mr. Vippus. Why does the PCIe version have 22 uh, Ethernet lanes? And the reason why is you have six, if I remember correctly, it's six out from each of the cards to simulate the same number of PCIe, the same number of Ethernet lanes out as the big 8 wide system, because the PCIe cards can only do up to four. And then you
yeah,
have four Ethernets per card internal. So yeah,
they've done a diagram on this before because it's
maybe I'm misremembering, but that's what my memory is.
yeah, at 1.8 goes into 3 goes into 6, and it
Yeah,
doesn't do it evenly. That's why there's a non-standard or non-obvious reason why they have this. Um, yeah, it's. I think I covered it in my initial Gaudi 3. It that they haven't put the diagram in this presentation, but it does exist where it looks just
four
really
out
weird.
in is it four out and six to each? I can't remember at this point in time.
So, but yeah, that was Gaudi 3. It says we have like another 20 slides, but I think most of it is
No, it's just consumer
cust-
momentum and
customer momentum.
and then end
The thing
notes.
is, the thing is, all these customer quotes and stuff, they're actually good if from a B2B standpoint. It shows that there is engagement on this, and whether that's Xeon eCore or Gaudi, one of the things that holds a lot of companies back is just we don't want to test it because we don't want to be an early adopter. We want other people to roll out the bugs first. So by saying you have ecosystem momentum and people are actually using it, does help that messaging. I wonder if I've got a let's see if I can do this. Uh, there's this. This is the P-Core deck. So
Yeah,
these are all the slides we saw at on Patrick's article, pretty much. So uh, with the nice, pretty pictures. Uh, They are actually real pictures, right? They are. Yes.
I believe so. Yes.
The one thing that I've been going on at companies for a long, long time is just using renders. Um, if you've got the thing, show the thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got some performance comparison with Xeon 6. Uh, this is a graph they pull out every time we increased server utilization at lower percentage of total loads. Um, because usually a server has 40% utilization. The funny thing is, you remember when Spectre and Meltdown hit?
Hmm.
Um, people was I remember enterprises saying, "Oh, our utilization has gone up from 30% to 60%, so we need double the amount of servers so we can go back down to 30% utilization." And people are saying, "Why aren't you at 100% utilization? It means you're running less hardware." And the response is, "In case we get a spike." Yeah, it was that sort of attitude. Now we just have Elastic Cloud, and that does it. So, uh, should also point out here that this is 350 watt 64 cores versus 128 core 500 watt. Um, what I think what would be interesting to see is this versus Bergamo. Even though it's P core versus 4C, it's 120 core versus 128 core. The frequency on
So
Bergamo
they,
is
they showed they showed
3.3.
some benchmarks down a bit, um,
Okay,
but first party benchmarks, grain of salt.
yeah, I hate that as a term.
What grain of
We
salt?
got, yeah, we got to call it like at least two games of League of Legends.
This when this slide popped up, a lot of people were sort of chuckling because it's like, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah.
Oh, because it has AMD's Computex numbers.
It's the whole Computex slide all over again.
So
Um,
yeah, people
so
complained. Intel complained that AMD's Computex numbers weren't real for Intel. So Intel decided, actually, no, our numbers are better. Better than what they published, not better than AMD. Because if you look,
yeah,
um, so this AMD line here in red is AMD's number for AMD. Then in grey, it's AMD's number for Intel 5th gen. Then the Intel optimized, so not out of the box, but optimized Intel numbers in the dark blue. Uh, this one is twice as good, but still twice as good as AMD's Intel number, but half as good as AMD's AMD number. This one is 2% better than AMD's number, and this one is half as good as AMD's number.
yeah.
Um, it's yeah. So what number do you use when you're still behind? But the
Well,
argument here is that Xeon's 6900P with double the cores offers lots more performance. Intel hardware with Intel software optimizations deliver the best performance.
so
Um, I, so story time. I've had arguments with Intel engineers over this, right? It comes down to also things like spec. Should you, when you get these chips into benchmark, should you benchmark everybody on a level playing field, or should you benchmark everybody at the most optimized point? His argument was customers don't care what the general performance is. Enterprise customers only care what the optimized performance is on their test. And my response, and so his argument was test peak to peak, right? Whereas my argument at the time was, well, in order to get any meaningful comparisons, I have to test stock to stock So we use a standard compiler toolchain for everyone as well, sort of thing, not the Intel optimized compiler with compiler optimizations turned on, which was his argument. And the exact truth is somewhere in the middle, right? Not everybody's going to have access to the most optimized of optimized. Um, though you would expect that a company to promote its own highly optimized results.
Yeah. So I will also. How do I put this? I have, especially in the AI space, a lot of people will just download PyTorch and go.
Hmm.
There's no, if you don't have your PyTorch upstreamed, well, you're SOL
Hmm.
for a lot of data scientists, which I would argue is a bad methodology, but unfortunately, that's what a lot of people do. Um,
Mm.
so,
This slide is interesting for two reasons. One is it says that there's a 6761p SKU, which is single socket only.
mm,
So that's like the U SKUs of old. So they end in a 1. That's how you know. But it also says at the bottom here the 6960p, which is a 72 core SKU, can be configured to 48 cores for higher frequencies.
that's just their
So
speed step stuff. Or
yeah, so this is SST.
yes,
Um,
speed select.
I have Yeah, I have a very old video that still gets some traffic about Intel Turbo tables, and I go through all the different variants of SST with I think third gen Xeon Scalable,
Mhm.
and you just end up buried in numbers. So interesting that they haven't spoken about it yet, but it's still part of the portfolio. To be honest, that was
But
always a feature that made it look like if you enabled speed step, you could essentially make one SKU look like another SKU. So why
yeah,
even have the other SKU in the first place, sort of thing.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, yep. Use Xeon 6 for Gaudi 3, and you end up with Picasso 9. Sorry, is it late? Yeah, okay. Performance leadership
Yeah,
showing.
just but
Okay, this is Bergamo versus Xeon,
yeah.
and this is Genoa
So the
versus.
gray is Bergamo, the light blue is Genoa.
Yeah. What they're saying is a value of 1 is AMD, and Intel in this case gets 20%, 59%, 61%,
Yeah,
79%, 45%. Um, so it's saying general compute like integer, floating point, memory bandwidth, um, linpack, and then some data services and some web services. They're saying normalized AMD 9004 brackets 1.0. I don't know what the 1.0 means. And because nobody ever puts information directly on the slide, I don't really want to go back into the deck to find out what that means. This is memory bandwidth, DDR5 versus Mr. Dims,
It's just like Mr.
software
Donut, Mr.
stack.
Dims.
Yeah, like Dr. Moss for power delivery. Okay, here's a SKU stack we saw beforehand. Yeah, so in Q1 we're going to get 6900E, but then we'll also get the 6500P, the 6300P. Um, and then we get into the appendix. So how some things are changed. Uh, this is all, and then configs and disclaimers, and we could spend all day on that. So
So can I
there's
finish?
a lot of intel.
Yeah. Um, and I don't really have any other topics to bring up.
Yeah, today was an Intel big day just because of the launches.
Hmm.
Um, it's Intel. The Intel Innovation event was meant to be tomorrow. That's the one that was cancelled. Uh, Tomorrow is I said at the beginning of the show, TSMC's packaging conference. That's the one I'm here for. So I'm going to be doing some content out of that with them. So I've got some interviews planned. Also going to speak to a few of their partners. And now that Lunar Lake's out, now that Xeon 6 is officially launched, and Gaudi is almost at GA, it should be quiet, hopefully, for a couple of weeks. Yeah, and until AMD's advancing AI event, where George and I, and maybe somebody else, if we can rope them in together, will be doing another one of these tech routines in person.
Hmm.
So before we wrap up, if if there are any questions in the chat, do let us know. I think this is a time where I can go back to eating my food now. So,
Unfortunately, I've run out of cheese. It
mm,
went pretty quickly. Very
I
tasty.
mean, mm,
Is everyone in Taipei, Taiwan right now? No, I don't think so. I think most people
no,
are in the.
This is Bay Area. Um, George is just on the west coast anyway, so
Yeah,
we
and
are
I'm
same time
down.
zone.
Yeah,
We're just not in the same location, like we
yeah.
were a couple of weeks ago. Um, uh, yeah, it's. I wonder where we'll get a chance to film the Poutine um, while we're at AMD's event, because I know you and I have discussed timing,
Yeah.
exactly when we want to do that, whether we want to do that before or whether we want to do it after. Um, oh yes, that's
So
right. It's so yeah. We should thank Nori for the $5. Much appreciated, dude. Thank you. Um, Friend of the show, James Pryor, industry veteran. He says there were a few doing an MSI visit. So I was invited by MSI to go to a factory tour in China. So even though they have a factory on the mainland in Taiwan, they it was a um, they were shipping out press, and they offered me, they were offering tech tubers essentially to go, and it was meant to be like a localized event. I think this was an EU thing especially, and they reached out and said, "Hey, we want to fly you to China. Here's the content we want you to do. Are you interested?" One, I said, "What's your budget?" And they said, "Oh no, it's just the flights and the experience." And I was like, you no, I work, pay me, um, that sort of thing. Yeah, you're not just shipping me around the world and expect free stuff on your doorstep. That's not how this business works. It would be if I was press, because that's the press business model. The other thing is that I it was I think it was I was if I went to go on that, I would have flown out the day before I finished my vacation. So I would
mhm.
have gone from my vacation straight to China because that was the timing. Um, so yeah, and with everything else going on, it's yeah. If MSI wants to do something properly and something more dedicated, then I the business the business model agreement of let's fly you to the thing and you have to do stuff, but we're not going to actually put you know money in your hand to do it. That has to go away at some point. Um, it's the only people who succeed in that are those that have massive businesses and followings, and their revenue model is different. Otherwise, you're just an arm of marketing. So there are people who are going to disagree with that. Um, so it's Power666 does ask why am I eating. 10 minutes before we started this stream, my Panda Express arrived. My first proper meal of the day. So um, I spent a little bit eating it, then I put it away for just so nobody wants to see anybody eating on stream, not unless you're into that sort of thing. Um, as we said, this if we do the tech routine mukbang, the thing is, drinking on stream is acceptable because everybody needs fluids. So Um, Good to see you, Crispy, as always. Uh, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Hopefully, see you
and
later in October, Crispy.
yeah. Technical Tube says he's not into people eating on stream. It's having stuff in your mouth is weird at the best of times. Uh,
Yeah.
but drinking's considered fine. So it's interesting. Another question from Nori, and I want to answer this because it does vary. Taiwanese companies still pushing production into China. I wouldn't say anything's moving. Um, the US tariffs and policies haven't yet attached to things like motherboards or storage. So it's if we're talking about the traditional Taiwanese companies that we talk about in the PC space, no. Um, might there be? It's are they bringing production into Taiwan to get away from being produced in China? The thing is, the policies towards China are towards specific companies in China. Um, the only policy that stops it going to any part of China is the compute density one that affects Nvidia and AMD. I'm not sure if Gaudi 3 falls under that as well. So
It technically does, yes.
okay, yeah, and probably Sambanova and stuff. So um, actually, what is Intel's stock price right now? 22.81. Oh, it's up 1% today. Um, it so it went up about 10% on the new on the news for the Qualcomm acquisition rumor, and then also, but there are other investors reportedly offering to invest. So 19 hours ago, Intel stock gains 3% as asset manager Apollo seeks to chip in 5 billion. So even if Intel is losing money, there are investors willing to put in a few bob, a few quid, a few billion to help prop it up until it gets back on its feet. I think we've discussed in the past, would would the US government bail out Intel if Intel really went to the dogs? It looks like there seems to be enough venture capital funding, asset management funding out there to do that job for the US government for now. Um, I mean, Intel's already de-risking some of its investments. One of the fabs is, I think, 15 billion is coming from BlackRock. We don't know about the agreement about how and when that money gets returned, or whether Intel can buy it back during a peak time. So, um, asks, is it good or bad to take money from private equity? Uh, it depends on the status of the company to begin with. So, what you'll often find is that private equity investors at a certain level will require, they'll say, "Oh, we want a seat on the board for our investment," or along those lines. Um, Intel's been quite good at keeping those. For example, Lip Bhutan from Walden International. Um, he was on the board of directors. Most not as an investor, I don't think. It was more sort of he has industry experience. Um, it's and you do get aggressive investors who want to dictate where the company is going down. I mean, I bet you there's 1,000,001 people out there, investors who would gladly take a carving knife to Intel, cut it up, sell it off, make some money, move on to the next one. They're only thinking about short term. Uh, However, if it's a private equity investment that you've worked with before to de-risk projects in the past, then there's a lot of there can be some good synergies there for sure. Uh, it's I deal with a lot of startups who get VC funding, right? And VC funding, they're buying parts of the company at projected evaluation, with the hope eventually they'll go to IPO or they'll get acquired and they'll make some money. I think okay, it's not a golden rule. I've heard some people say, out of every 10 investments, 9 will fail. Just make sure that the one that wins isn't the one that's 90% of your portfolio. Yeah. So it's going back to the topic we spoke about on the last thing about the acquisition of Intel.
Mhm.
Some people pointed out and said it wouldn't have to be an acquisition; it could be a merger. My argument there is, what's the difference?
Yeah.
You're still
Whether
going to
it be a
end up.
merger or a reverse merger or an acquisition, it all ends up being the same thing in the end.
Yeah, the only thing with a merger is that you still keep most of the management,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, okay. There's also investors change and whatever, but I think in this case it wouldn't matter much. Intel is a company with a lot of personality, both individuals and corporate.
Mhm.
Qualcomm, arguably even more so, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things with these mergers is that you have to have both sides willing to do it, and egos and cultural norms that are applicable.
Yeah.
Um, so
Well,
give and take.
yeah. Um, do you have anything else to cover? Any more questions?
Um, I don't. I'm still catching up on emails from my vacation. I think I've got like another 700 to go. Um,
And
I still need to
and
do some research tonight for the videos I'm doing tomorrow.
fair. Um, I guess the only one last note is that, and I didn't see anything on Pacer for it, so um, those might be coming out later in the week. But the RMV Qualcomm lawsuit went to court yesterday.
Yeah,
Um,
y- yeah,
I did
yeah.
I did
Because
look at Pacer, which
we talked.
is public access for court records. Um,
Yeah.
I didn't
So
see anything.
for those who don't know, Arm and Qualcomm are involved in a big lawsuit right now about the use of Nuvia's license and the restrictions of that license in the on acquisition. Um, I mentioned in the filing twice from both companies, so a total of 4 times. Thankfully, they were citing me quoting their own executives in interviews. Both of them are arguing that what the executive said was the other opposite, so I'm not going to be called into court. They weren't quoting my exact words; they were quoting my article of their words. The Yeah, it's Arm obviously wants Qualcomm to pay money. Qualcomm wants Arm to say, actually, your license is valid. We know that Arm's been changing some of its license agreements recently. There's talk about Arm going their own way into silicon of late. Basically, Arm's being a bit more aggressive in how it generates revenue. But which is free to do because it owns the IP and it owns the way the IP is sold
Mhm.
and used. Um, Whether that's free market or not, you can argue if you like. I fully expect that lawsuit to end with a bunch of money going in one direction, along with a 10-year, 20-year licensing agreement. I don't think anything will be stopped being sold on shelves, quite like I think Arm wanted to. So it may be costly for Qualcomm. It may be costly for AMD. There is one group that will definitely benefit from it: lawyers. Um,
Always,
so
always.
speaking of court cases, we just had the first week of the Billy Mitchell versus Carl Jobs lawsuit in Australia. I mentioned this to George before, but
Yeah.
if you are familiar on YouTube, um, Billy Mitchell is the individual who has had his records deleted for perceived uh, cheating or misleading in his world record high scores of Donkey Kong and other retro games. He claims innocence. Evidence suggests otherwise. Evidence does suggest he was lying through his teeth. However, I don't know that, and I'll leave that for a court to decide. There, a popular gaming YouTuber called Carl Jobst who does a fair amount of speedrunning documentaries. He's also a world-class GoldenEye speedrunner and owns
Mhm.
many records on GoldenEye. Made several videos speaking about Billy Mitchell as a fraud and made statements on there that Billy is claiming is extended defamation as a result. And Billy is known for being litigious, for taking people to court for saying bad things to him, because his whole persona is that he is the world's original best video gamer. Though that's been shown that he is a good player. He is a really good player at things like Pac-Man. He claims to have the first perfect Pac-Man score, and King of Kong was a film slash documentary about him that didn't necessarily have all the detail, and other people have dug more into a lot of this. And there's a strong community support there for Carl Jobst because it's also expensive to have these court cases, and Billy is a millionaire and Carl isn't. Billy gets invited to go to um, conferences or con or gaming events, and he'll have an appearance fee of 10k, 20k, 50k, and he'll sign things or sell merch, and he becomes a draw for those events. And some of the arguments in the case is that Billy has lost work as a result of Carl's videos. Um, However, every time they bring somebody up who's invited Billy to an event to help host it with them, they've all said, "Oh, we'll be happy to come back." So it's not losing him work, and that's part of the drama. Uh, it's Carl, for all his foibles, I don't want to say he's going down or he's defining a route that seems to be more driven towards drama. As in, the drama videos do well. We all know this. It's the YouTube algorithm, right? You speak about something that's confrontational, and there are two sides, and people will draw to it, especially when there have been perceived wrongs, or somebody's out a lot of money, or consumers are jaded. Um, you know, it's I don't want to say Gamers Nexus is going that route because I know for the most part Steve puts in really, really good work, and his stuff recently on EK is top notch. You know, lots of positive things to say about it. Carl has been going down that route more recently rather than his traditional stay. So it'd be interesting. They just had the first week of the court case. It's now adjourned until October 8th, I think.
Mhm.
So I've had initial arguments. So I've had a few witnesses. Uh, and this is all happening in Australia because that's where Carl's from. Billy's filed it in Australia and had to retain Australian counsel, obviously. So um, it's yeah, we'll that's something that interests me outside of the tech space. It's gaming, so it's kind of tech related. But I've been watching Carl's videos for years. I wish he wouldn't take the Raid Shadow Legends sponsorships. Yeah,
It,
yeah,
and while
hey,
mentioning Raid Shadow Legends, this stream has been sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
no, don't give them any. Could you imagine if I? Could you imagine if I did a Raid Shadow Legends? Um, I did actually get offered one. Um, a 60. I think they wanted a 60-second spot early in the video, and it was $1,500. Um, so I am in a very lucky position that YouTube is extra to my regular work, and as a result, I can say no. And actually, I've been on a streak lately where um, I haven't actually done an in-video ad since a proper one since the AI hardware show, where I got a few AI related sponsors to sponsor a few episodes. I think IBM sponsored one, TensorTorrent
Mhm.
sponsored one, Untether sponsored one, and then Ventana Micro sponsored two. Um, I think so. It's yeah. Since then, I've had companies approach me and wanting to do like one or two, and they stress me out so much. It's not worth it for a few $100s here or a few hundreds there.
Um,
If it was my main, if YouTube was my main source of income, like it is for Carl, like it is for a lot of
mhm.
people in the space, then yeah, I'd have to consider it and take it seriously. But I don't have to, thankfully. Mixture of between everybody who subscribes to the More Than More newsletter, everybody who's subscribed on the Patreon and gets access to the TechTechPotato Discord. That all helps, and then I do fully sponsored videos with some of my
Mhm.
clients. That's fine. Um, but yeah, it's individual in video ads still irk me, just because it's always like I want to give it to somebody else to do and then just slot it in. But even then,
Yeah. So
um,
speaking of food, it is dinner time for me. So,
yeah,
and I
okay.
think we're running
Um,
out of ideas. But Mr. Vippis has said, have you
no,
considered co-streaming Poutine to the CNC YouTube channel? Um, yes, but I don't know how to do it, and I don't know if Ian would be okay with it.
I I do. I've done some co-streams with Wendell,
Mm,
um, and the dynamic is interesting. Excuse me. We'll speak about it offline. That's
okay.
fine. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, go eat. We've been streaming for a couple of hours, so it's a good place to
Yeah.
stop as any. Care Hacked asks any more news on Supermicro's financial disclosure issues. I haven't looked into it personally yet. I wasn't aware they were still having issues. That may be something to think about for the next Q&A. What we really should have is a Tech Routine Q&A on the Discord,
Mm,
so that if people do have things they want, then we can shove them in here. Because I know Talking Heads Craft Computing does that. So
yep.
let's call it there. Let's go eat.
Yep.
Let's have a bio break. Uh, I'll start eating my cake. So and yeah, there will be some more news out tomorrow from TSMC's event. Stay tuned for my socials. Nothing I think will go up on the channel exactly about it because there just won't be time to edit it or anything, tomorrow. But um, that's good. It's going to be a lot of fun, and then I'll travel back home, and then I'll be back here in a couple of weeks, and we'll do it live. We'll do it
Yep.
live.
Join it
So
live,
cool, everyone.
guys. Yep.
Thank you all for watching. This has been the Tech Poutine. I am Potato.
And I am cheese.
Have a good one, y'all. Oh wait, that's your line.
Hey, that's my line.